The squad cars pulled into my driveway like they were responding to a hostage situation. 3 of them, sirens blaring, red and blue lights flashing across the neighborhood. Curtains shifted up and down the street as curious faces peeked out. I stood there in my cargo shorts and flip-flops, still holding my garden hose, water dripping onto the concrete. The lead officer stepped out, his hand resting casually on his duty belt. "Sir, we received a call about threats made regarding pool access. Are you Ethan Morrison?" I blinked, genuinely baffled. "That's me, and the only threat I've made today was to my tomato plants, if they don't start producing soon." Behind him, I spotted her, Beverly Hutchinson, self-proclaimed empress of the Maple Ridge HOA, standing like she was directing a movie scene. She was handing out color-coded binders to the other officers, the covers labeled in bold Arial font. Pool access violation, evidence of hostile noncompliance. "He threatened me with legal action when I attempted to implement community pool sharing protocols," she declared, her voice trained with the confidence of someone who'd rehearsed this exact moment in front of her bathroom mirror. The officer looked at her, then at me. "Sir, did you threaten this woman?" I told her she couldn't use my private pool for her water aerobics class. That's it. What Beverly didn't realize was that she had just called the police on someone who'd spent 15 years as a municipal contract lawyer, specializing in property disputes. Things were about to get interesting. My name is Ethan Morrison, age 38. 5 years ago, I left a major law firm to start my own practice focused on property law and zoning regulations. Business had been good. Good enough for me to buy my dream home on Sycamore Court in Maple Ridge, a clean, tree-lined suburb where lawns were trimmed to perfection. The house was nice, for bedrooms, a renovated kitchen, but the real prize was a pool, a kidney-shaped oasis with a rock waterfall, underwater LEDs, and 6 feet of solid privacy fence. The property deed clearly stated that all pool facilities were private amenities, not subject to HOA oversight. I checked it 3 times, and had another lawyer friend confirm. That pool was mine, and mine alone. Then came Beverly Hutchinson. She moved in 6 months after I did, and within 2 weeks, she'd orchestrated what neighbors still call the coup of chrysanthemums, overthrowing the previous HOA president after accusing him of mismanaging the entrance flower beds. From that moment, she ruled Maple Ridge like her own personal kingdom, writing citations for grass a quarter-inch too long, mandating mailbox angles, and scheduling mandatory beautification audits. For the most part, I stayed off her radar. My lawn was regulation height, my trash cans invisible from the street, and I even hung lights for the annual holiday contest. But everything changed the day she saw my pool. It was at the summer barbecue when she wandered into my backyard, eyes locking on the waterfall feature. "This is magnificent," she said, her tone implying she was already figuring out how to make it hers. The community would benefit greatly from access to such amenities. "Good thing I love sharing," I replied with a smile. The view from outside the fence. That was 3 months ago. Since then, Beverly had waged a steady campaign to gain access to my pool. It began with casual remarks at HOA meetings about underutilized neighborhood resources and the spirit of community sharing. Then came the letters, each one more official-looking than the last, urging me to open my pool for scheduled wellness hours. I replied to every one of them, politely but firmly, citing the property deed and state law. Beverly didn't appreciate being told no. The week before she called the cops, she'd actually posted a sign on my gate reading, "Community pool hours, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday through Friday." I tore it down and installed a new lock. Next came her so-called neighborhood survey, asking residents if they supported equal access to all aquatic facilities within Maple Ridge boundaries. The wording was vague enough that most people probably thought she meant the actual community pool. When 60% said yes, she claimed she had a mandate. The morning of the police incident, my security cameras caught her at 6 a.m., tape measure in hand, inspecting my fence. When I stepped outside to confront her, she said she was conducting a safety inspection for insurance purposes. That's when I knew this wasn't going to end with just letters and surveys. I told her, calmly but firmly, to leave my property immediately or I pursue legal action for trespassing. Apparently, those were the magic words that triggered her 911 call. In Beverly Hutchinson's mind, threatening legal action was the same as threatening bodily harm. At least, that's how she described it to the dispatcher. So there I was, standing in my driveway, still dripping from the garden hose, while 3 squad cars idled behind her minivan. Years of practicing law had taught me one thing above all. Never lose your composure, especially around law enforcement. Officers, I said evenly, setting the hose aside. I have security footage from this morning's incident. Would you like to review it? Beverly's face turned the color of a ripe tomato. That won't be necessary, she snapped. I've already documented everything in these binders. The lead officer, Sergeant Davis, glanced down at the one she just handed him. His expression betrayed the kind of weary patience only a veteran cop could master. Ma'am, he said, flipping a page, these appear to be HOA newsletters and pool party flyers. Context, Beverly declared, waving her hands. It's all about context. Page 47 shows overwhelming community, support for pool access expansion. I pulled up the footage on my phone and handed it over. Here you go, Sergeant. This was taken at 6:07 a.m. this morning. You'll see Ms. Hutchinson enter my property without permission. We watched her on screen, creeping along my fence line with a tape measure. The audio was clear, me asking her to leave, mentioning legal action if she didn't. My voice never rose above conversational. Sergeant Davis handed back her binder. Ma'am, he said patiently, threatening legal action for trespassing isn't a crime. It's actually what property owners are supposed to do. Beverly bristled. But he's hoarding community resources. That pool could serve 20 families. Is it a private pool? The sergeant asked. Yes, I said. Then it's not a community resource. Simple, logical, devastating. Beverly, however, was not done. She yanked another folder from her tote bag. I have documentation that suggests the original property lines were drawn incorrectly. His pool actually extends 2 feet into HOA common ground. That was new and interesting. May I see this documentation? I asked. She hugged the folder to her chest. That's official HOA business. Sergeant Davis held out his hand. Ma'am, if you're making a property line claim, we'll need to see it. After a tense pause, she reluctantly surrendered the folder. At first glance, the blueprints inside looked legitimate, but something about them was off. I studied them for a moment, then opened the county recorder's website on my phone. Sergeant, I said slowly, these blueprints have been altered. The date stamp says 1998, but the county didn't start using this font until 2005. And the surveyor's license number? It belongs to someone who died in 1994. Sergeant Davis examined them closely, his expression hardening. Ma'am, did you create these documents? Beverly's mouth opened and closed like a startled fish. I may have enhanced them for clarity. Enhanced? I couldn't help but laugh. You forged county documents. I corrected obvious errors, she snapped. That pool is too nice to be wasted on one man. Sergeant Davis spoke quietly into his radio, calling for a detective. 2 other officers began photographing the documents. What had started as a petty HOA call was now a potential felony case. Ms. Hutchinson, Davis said formally, forging government documents is a serious offense. You have the right to remain silent. This is ridiculous. Beverly shrieked. I'm the HOA president. I have executive authority over all neighborhood amenities. That's not how property law works, I said under my breath. While waiting for the detective, I handed over additional documentation. My property deed, legitimate blueprints, and a thick file of Beverly's increasingly erratic correspondence about my pool. I also showed them the drone photos she'd taken of my backyard, courtesy of my home security logs. When the detective arrived, he took her statement. Beverly admitted altering the blueprints, but insisted she was merely correcting historical inaccuracies for the greater good. She also confessed to installing a hidden camera aimed at my pool for safety monitoring purposes. That added unlawful surveillance to her list of problems. By the time the detective finished, Beverly was formally informed she'd be facing multiple felony charges. Forgery, filing false documents, and invasion of privacy. "You can't do this," she wailed as they escorted her home to retrieve the surveillance equipment. But for once in Maple Ridge, Beverly Hutchinson wasn't the one in charge. "I'm trying to build community," Beverly shouted as the officers escorted her away. "He's the selfish one." By that evening, word of the incident had spread faster than wildfire through the neighborhood phone tree. An emergency HOA board meeting was called. The community center was packed. Half the neighborhood had shown up, buzzing with anticipation. Beverly sat at the head of the table, her posture defiant despite everything that had happened earlier. Her color-coded binders were stacked neatly in front of her like a general's battle plans. "I move to invoke Article 15 of the HOA Charter," she declared. "Presidential immunity for actions taken in good faith for the benefit of the community." Harold Garrett, the board treasurer, adjusted his glasses and sighed. "Beverly, Article 15 covers emergency landscaping expenses, not felonies." "It's a gray area," she said sharply. I stood up from the audience. "If I may address the board," I said, "I'd like to present some information." "You have no standing here." Beverly barked. "This is an HOA matter." "Actually," said Margaret Wong, the board secretary, as both a homeowner and the victim of the alleged crimes, "Mr. Morrison has every right to speak." I walked to front, a folder in hand. "Board members," I began, "Ms. Hutchinson's actions have exposed the HOA to serious legal liability. Forging documents in the HOA's name, conducting unlawful surveillance, and filing false police reports could result in lawsuits that would wipe out our reserve funds." "Objection!" Beverly snapped, as if we were in a courtroom. "Furthermore," I continued, "I prepared a cease and desist letter regarding the ongoing harassment. My attorney will also be filing a civil suit for defamation, trespassing, and intentional infliction of emotional distress." The board exchanged uneasy glances. Harold cleared his throat. "Beverly," he said carefully, "in light of these developments, I move for an immediate vote of no confidence in your presidency." "Seconded," Margaret said without hesitation. The vote was swift and unanimous, 5 votes to 0. Beverly's expression faltered. Her shoulders slumped as the weight of it finally hit her. "You can't do this," she whispered. "The pool initiative was going to be my legacy." "Your legacy," Harold replied, "will be the new bylaws we're drafting to make sure this never happens again." As Beverly gathered her things, her hands trembling, I took a moment to address the crowd. "For what it's worth," I said, "I'll be hosting a pool party this Saturday. Board members and neighbors are all welcome. It's BYOB, and yes, it's invitation only." The room broke into nervous laughter. Beverly fled the building, clutching her binders like a life preserver. The following week, the district attorney's office formally charged Beverly Hutchinson with 3 felonies and 2 misdemeanors. Her attorney managed to negotiate a plea deal, 2 years of probation, $5,000 in fines, and 300 hours of community service. The judge also issued a restraining order. Beverly was forbidden from coming within 100 feet of my property. When the sentence was read, she broke down completely. 2 years, she sobbed. $5,000? But I was trying to help the community. The judge's tone was firm but measured. "Ma'am," he said, "forging government documents to steal access to someone's private property is not community service. It's a crime." Her cries echoed through the courtroom as the bailiff led her away to begin her probation processing. For the first time in months, Maple Ridge was quiet again. The air around Sycamore Court felt lighter, free of memos, mandates, and morning tape measure inspections. As for me, I spent that Saturday floating peacefully in my pool, a cold drink in hand, surrounded by good neighbors and laughter. For once, the water was calm, and so was the neighborhood.